this comment in the chat, feminism, Star Wars is a male brand. Actually, Star Wars is a socialist brand, if you want to be perfectly honest about it.
So I want to even I want to sidestep a little bit from that as well and say that like Leia is a feminist icon, right? But she was done in a way that a lot of you guys, Andy, and I'm speaking broadly, not specifically about you, but a lot of you guys out there that see as a changed brand now, she was a feminist icon to women because women connected with that character, right? They connected with her. And you guys didn't pay attention to it because you have what a lot of people call nostalgia lenses, or like whatever you want to say about these older movies, like grandfathered in, grandmothered in, whatever the term is. But she's a feminist icon. So the issue isn't the feminism, it is the way it is being delivered to you that you have an issue with. So you have to understand that saying that feminism is bad or that Star Wars is a male brand is sort of whitewashing everything that happened, like overt or covert feminism in these projects. To say there were no feminist icons in the era of Star Wars or Terminator or any of these other movies is just a false statement. It just is. It's not real. There are a lot of women in movies that are strong characters that are considered feminist or feminist icons.
Yeah.
It's just that you didn't see it until someone told you to look for it. You understand what I'm saying? Like, the reason why you're seeing it is because you heard someone, or there's some sort of discourse that told you that feminism in these things is bad and that Star Wars is a male brand or whatever. Do men not like women? Why does Star Wars being a male brand have to mean that there's only men in Star Wars movies and TV shows?
Well, that brings us to the last noteworthy news story.
Yeah.
Kathleen Kennedy. I know immediately what the story is. She is leaving immediately. She's gone because she had a revelation that all her Star Wars is terrible. All the grifters are actually not grifters; they're correct, and she's realizing that they're all correct. And she's gonna
apparently it's retroactive. She was actually fired 5 years ago. It's just all retroactive. They're just gonna. She's been hiding in their offices.
They didn't want to make it look right. Yeah, this is all accurate and true. Trust us. We don't even have to read this.
I mean, if you fancy, Trump fired her. He got that done. It was Doge that did it.
Yeah. Well, the actual story is, of course, she is retiring because, fun fact, guys, she is 71 years old.
I know. I didn't know that. I looked it up yesterday when I was streaming, and I was like, holy shit. She is 71. She's been working in the industry since the 70s. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people ignore the fact that she's been a massive influence on so many movies for decades and decades. And like when I learned she was 71, I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. That also makes sense because like she's been around forever. And she's leaving Lucasfilm at the end of the year. And we all know that Chud Space will claim absolute victory.
They already are. I've already seen the videos of it.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, I've seen them popping up already. And this was just announced yesterday. This is like hours old. And I think another thing that I'm going to go ahead and say it. Whoever they put in charge next, they're going to do the exact same thing. It's just going to be the same shit, guys.
I mean, Heel versus Babyface already did a stream where he said she's going to be gone and nothing is going to change. So they're already setting that up. Let me be very clear here, right? Kathleen Kennedy is one of what I like to call the 4 pillars of the anti-fandom outrage. Like, it is one of those gifts that kept on giving because they were able to complain about Star Wars forever by proxy because of Kathleen Kennedy. That is why. So her being gone is not a good thing for them because I don't think they believed that she was going to retire this soon. I think they felt like they could grift off of her for another 10 years if they wanted. And this is not good for them. So they want you to believe that whoever replaces her is going to be just as bad as her because they need the dollar bills. They need you to keep lining their pockets with money. So that's why they're doing it.
Well, you've also got to set that up early because if any person that they add to the Lucasfilm lineup, unless there's somebody they already have a pre-existing, like unless Brie Larson ends up running,
oh God,
you're just not going to have the same level of of vitriol towards them. Like they're not established. I mean, like somebody like it's kind of got to be a perfect storm in order to get someone to be this sort of like gift that keeps on giving. Generally speaking, they have to be either a woman or a minority, and they have to be able to like get people at the right times to get them fired up about this person. Otherwise, like they've got lots of problems with like Dave Filoni or whatever, but he's never been the same level. Like you just can't get the same amount of hatred out of.
I mean, same thing as with Kevin Feige. They've been trying to go against him a bit, but it's not as big as they can do Kathleen Kennedy.
Which I mean, primarily is because they're men, but it's just it's got to be disappointing to see like, oh shit, there goes a revenue stream.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. Rachel Ziegler will replace her. It'll be
I mean, you just gave me my title for my next video. I'm going to do a thumbnail with Kathleen Kennedy and Brie Larson on one side and be like the perfect replacement for Kathleen Kennedy is Brie Larson. So that'll be amazing. I think the names that are floating around have been Dave Filoni, obviously, Jon Favreau, Kevin Feige, which I don't see that happening, but that's one of the names
he's too busy with Marvel. I don't see
and oddly enough, J.J. Abrams was another name that I saw being floated around as well. So
wow, 4 people I would really like it to not be. That's fun.
I'd be okay with Jon Favreau or Dave Filoni, I think.
I think Dave Filoni is the most likely. I think Jon Favreau probably I don't know if he'd be comfortable running the studio. I think he'd be more of a willing to direct and more creative, but I don't know. No.
Out of them, I mean, yeah, Filoni is definitely like the least frustrating pick, but like, I don't know, to an extent, one, I just don't have any sort of faith in Jon Favreau. Like he's done good stuff. He's done terrible stuff. Like media wise, not morally. But I'm just like, I hear those names and I'm like, that feels like a Mount Rushmore of people I don't want running Lucasfilm. I'd like somebody new, please.
Well, I mean, it's almost certainly going to be somebody who's worked under her, because I don't see them just picking somebody new.
Yeah, but like not somebody who's been in such a leadership role so consistently. Like it totally makes sense. Obviously, you want somebody who has like experience, but not somebody that like everybody already knows. It's like we've seen
they have to pick somebody with like business experience, not really like brand experience.
And that's the thing is Jon Favreau, they said, is, speaking to what Chariot's saying, that Jon Favreau is a good creative person, but not necessarily the person to run the business, because you would take out all of those things that he's done creatively that have made good Star Wars, and you'd be putting him in a role where he's just making business decisions. So I think it would have to be somebody that isn't necessarily super hands-on with Star Wars, but would do a good job with like delegating projects. I think is
Bryce Dallas Howard still doing stuff for Lucasfilm?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah, I think so.
I don't know if she's as prevalent as the other names.
Oh yeah,
although she's probably more prevalent than J.J. Abrams has been recently, because I don't think J.J. Abrams has been involved for a while. Although of the names listed, he'd be my bottom tier choice. Because not that I don't have any strong objections to J.J. Abrams, but I don't know. He doesn't thrill me either.
Well, the problem is anybody that takes a role like this gives up a lot of their free time, which is one of the issues with like James Gunn taking over DC Studios, is that are we ever going to see a James Gunn project that isn't DC after this? And I don't mean just Marvel, I mean anything from James Gunn. So if a person who typically makes movies or TV shows takes over this creative role, or this, I guess, delegating role in Star Wars, that means the end of whatever creative stuff they're doing outside of that. So, which is why Kevin Feige running Marvel is fine, because he doesn't really direct or write anything anymore, really. So he's just the guy in charge of that stuff. So whoever gets that position would essentially lose the ability to make things. And that's why I think they have to be very particular about who they're picking.
Okay, Andy, you think the ideology is too deep in Lucasfilm for things to change? What ideology? This is coming out very, very chuddish to me, and I hope I'm wrong. But like, I don't understand the ideology. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy is not a writer.
But if the ideology starts with Kathleen Kennedy, then if she's gone, who else would they be reporting to at that point? Because the reason why she exists is because like the board of directors and the people at the top don't directly speak to people in those departments. It comes through, like, Kathleen Kennedy is that person that bridges whatever is happening at the top and what is happening in the creative side of it. So if people are making things and they have another person in Kathleen Kennedy's spot, then her, whatever it is that she was doing wouldn't be a factor with any of those projects. It would be whatever that person's doing. I mean, that's the hierarchy, right? That's how that works, correct? I mean, You wouldn't be somebody directing a Star Wars project and you skip over whoever is in that role and go directly to Bob. Like that's not how that would work. Not organized chaos, Bob.
I'd like to say two things here real quick. Like the first, kind of to that point. Well, I guess first of all, I knew there was an Andy. I'm not crazy. I saw that name somewhere, and that's why that was in my head earlier.
Oh, Andy in the chat. Okay,
yeah,
got you.
I don't know why I said that earlier, but I was like, wait a minute, there is an Andy. And then the other thing is like, Star Wars was at its most like communist when George Lucas was making the movies. When he was in charge of everything, that stuff was very left wing, and not in like a propaganda sense, but just in like those were the beliefs that he had, and it colored a lot of the stuff that he made. And that was very, very intense and very thorough. Like there's a ton of jabs at the U.S. government throughout the original 6 like Star Wars films.
I mean, it's like almost like SNL skit level sometimes, like some of the shit in there.
Yeah,
like,
so it's this comment in the chat: feminism, Star Wars is a male brand. Actually, Star Wars is a socialist brand. If you want to be perfectly honest about it.
So I want to even like I want to sidestep a little bit from that as well and say that like Leia is a feminist icon, right? But she was done in a way that a lot of you guys, Andy, and I'm speaking broadly, not specifically about you, but a lot of you guys out there that see as a changed brand now, she was a feminist icon to women because women connected with that character, right? They connected with her. And you guys didn't pay attention to it because you have what a lot of people call nostalgia lenses, or like whatever you want to say about these older movies, like grandfathered in, grandmothered in, whatever the term is. But she's a feminist icon. So the issue isn't the feminism, it is the way it is being delivered to you that you have an issue with. So you have to understand that saying that feminism is bad or that Star Wars is a male brand is sort of whitewashing everything that happened, like overt or covert feminism in these projects. To say there were no feminist icons in the era of Star Wars or Terminator or any of these other movies is just a false statement. It just is. It's not real. There are a lot of women in movies that are strong characters that are considered feminist or feminist icons.
Yeah.
It's just that you didn't see it until someone told you to look for it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like the reason why you're seeing it is because you heard someone or there's some sort of discourse that told you that feminism in these things is bad and that Star Wars is a male brand or whatever. Do men not like women? Why does Star Wars being a male brand have to mean that there's only men in Star Wars movies and TV shows? Why is that? Do men not like women? And this is the argument I've had several times. The last time I checked, heterosexual men like seeing women in stuff. So why would having a woman in something negate it from being a male brand? I'd love to answer for that. Like, I'd love somebody to explain that to me. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Modern speaking as somebody who, like I don't really usually have a lot of input on some of the topics that are talked about on this show, just because it's like comics, not really my scene. But although I have been playing the Batman Arkham games recently, so I'm starting to get the vibe. But I like Star Wars, it's completely different. Like I totally grew up on that stuff, and I got to be honest, like the new Star Wars from Force Awakens onward, it kind of feels almost a little sterile to me. Mm-hmm. And I think part of that is that when you're orienting around like a brand and not like like a particular singular creative vision, like Star Wars was what George Lucas imagined, for better or for worse. And I think I wonder about like, the Star Wars sequel trilogy. It kind of felt like a little, not the individual films so much, but like the general films as a series, a little made by committee, a little bit like we're going to take this person's vision and we're going to pair it with this. And that some parts of it I thought were pretty good. Some parts of it I thought like they could have done more. Like if you guys have ever like seen like interviews or like any like really in-depth stuff with people who have worked with Daisy Ridley, she's kind of one of the most like tough and charismatic women in Hollywood. Like she's wild. Just a magnetic personality. And I almost kind of felt like they didn't really use that much. She comes through in a few moments, but they kind of write her like she is this, young, naive girl character who needs the older characters to kind of teach her how stuff works. And I don't know, like the Acolyte, nothing masculine in it. Is that true? I feel like one of the lead actors is like
I
a
feel like one of the
mentor
lead actors is
figure.
a man. Yeah.
Well,
And
look, I also want to point out there's
I don't know
nothing
how
wrong
much
with
masculine stuff needs to be in it. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
Isn't being
the
like
thing
a
about,
wandering samurai who regrets your life choices the most
Yeah,
masculine thing ever?
Probably, but I would even say if you were someone that just loves the older stuff, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you also shouldn't tell people they can't have things they want too. You have to understand that, right? So are we saying that because we love something else that other people can't have a piece of it as well? That's a weird way to view art. Like, I will never ever agree to that. I feel like it's a weird gatekeeping thing that doesn't need to exist, because a lot of people love Andor, and Andor is nothing like the Acolyte. And if you prefer that, watch Andor. Let other people that like Acolyte watch the Acolyte. You don't have to consume
you can enjoy
everything.
them both.
Yeah, you don't have to consume everything. It's okay if something isn't for you. And like when I go into a restaurant, I don't order everything on the menu. You know what I mean? Like if I go into a restaurant, I order what I like, and I don't engage with the stuff that I don't. It doesn't mean that I don't like the restaurant or the restaurant is bad because they offer things on the menu that I don't like. That's fine. You don't have to like that stuff. It's totally cool with liking the OG stuff. I do too. Empire Strikes Back is still my favorite Star Wars thing.
Yeah,
next to Rogue One. I love Rogue One. And I actually like the Solo movie. I know some people didn't. I liked it. Sorry. I mean, it's probably a hot take. I thought it was fun. But I mean, the point is you can like and dislike stuff, but to act like things shouldn't exist or shouldn't be, people shouldn't have things catered to them because you like one of these things and the other thing you don't like, is such a weird thing. Like, I'm a 50-year-old guy, right? I think that there's a lot of people out there that love stuff that I don't love, and that's okay. They should be able to engage with it. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Also, like, I think part of the reason why stuff, when guys like the Critical Drinker, you know, they go on these tirades a lot of the time. It's kind of what his brand is based on, where he complains about like movies these days, you know, and I think the thing that he's capitalizing on is this kind of perception that is kind of real. You know, it's narrativized, so it gets twisted and generalized, but there's a strain of like, yeah, I do think a lot of stuff is very corporate now, but that's because like companies really want to like algorithmically generate content that consistently gets the most popular views and therefore also the most possible amount of money. And I like, speaking as an artist, I've made a lot of art that didn't make me a dime.
Right.
And some of the best stuff I've ever made will never be in a gallery or a theater or anything like that, you know. But if you put it on my tombstone, it'll go hard as hell. I just think that, like, you know, it's just, it's weird because, like, the idea, like, no, like, we have to make stuff that's, like, as profitable as possible. I kind of feel like you gotta fail a little bit. Like, you gotta fall down a little bit.
Well,
especially if
a
it's
good
the
point.
first season of a show, you know?
Yep. Bingo.
Like, yeah, I don't know. You gotta develop it a little bit.
There's this weird metric that people put on things now where everything has to be 10 out of 10 out of the gate. There's no room for growth on anything. And that is such an unfair expectation of art. Sometimes art takes time. And that's not for everybody. And if something isn't good in the studios, like we put too much money in it, we're going to get rid of it. Fair enough. But when you have a show that was the second highest performer on that platform in 2024, the second most watched thing on that platform, and it still gets canceled, I don't know. I'm just going to say that's a little weird to me. But
yeah, that's the thing, is like executives don't think in terms of like actual views. They think in terms of projected like views versus whether you're meeting your projections. So like if it doesn't, even if it is like the most watched thing, if they wanted it to be twice as watched as it was, even if that expectation is unrealistic, this happens a lot with video games, you know? I mean, people, like, they want things to make crazy amounts of money, and maybe that's not always super, you know, realistic. But I do want to like pull something out of the ether here. There's a comment that just like I saw scroll past.
Okay.
J-Lord says the problem is Disney erased the old standard universe. Also, the problem is not women being in games. It's the way the women look these days in Western games. I'm going to say two things to you. One of them is I'm going to give you an agreement and a disagreement. I'm going to meet you halfway. I do think Disney could do a lot of good at Lucasfilm if they dug back through the old expanded universe and they made sure that they had the rights to everything and they republished and recanonized a lot of old material or put more effort into what like the Legends publishing stuff. They've done that a little bit, but I think if they leaned really hard into it, I don't know. Like I always felt like it was a missed opportunity that there's all this wild, kind of in some ways high concept stuff that maybe it wouldn't have that much mainstream appeal. But like if you've like read like Drew Karpyshyn's the Darth Bane trilogy. Drew Karpyshyn worked on the original Mass Effect games. He did a lot of writing for those, and he's a really good writer. Matthew Stover again, like both of them are really good at writing like martial arts scenes. So everything they do with the Jedi and the Sith is just fantastic. But you know, like I do agree, a lot of that old stuff has kind of faded by the wayside, and I don't think that's good. The women in Western games thing, that's brain poison. That's brain rot. Women look like
not every
beings.
woman needs to look like Stellar Blade. No.
Also, like that, I don't think the character in Stellar Blade really looks that good. Maybe this is because I like most of my idols are like lesbians. Well, but I kind of feel like I kind of feel like Real Doll is not a. It's not just that most women don't look like real dolls. It's that that doesn't even really look good to me. You know.
Yeah.
Like I don't. There's just something.
There
about
would be
that
a fakeness if you saw that in real life.
Books, records, films, these things matter. Call me shallow. It's the fucking truth.